My name is Kelly Armetta, Chef Armetta, and welcome to Cooking Made Simple. Today I'm going to be cooking some Italian food for you. We're going to be making some gnocchis, and my wife is really thrilled about this. I'm really excited to what we're going to do for you today. We got a great couple of recipes for gnocchi. We also have a nice, awesome summertime salad, and we're also going to make a really great treat for dessert with mascarpone cheese. So let's get started. So I started telling to you about my wife is very excited, and this is really important to note. So we talked about doing these cooking shows, and the first 3 episodes, if you've watched them before, I was making some different type of food, and we were talking about, when are you going to do Italian cooking? And I said, well, you know, I'm an executive chef at a hotel, and I make all different things. So I have to kind of show my diversity. And so it was exciting to do that. But now she was really excited that I'm going to be doing these gnocchi dishes. So this particular cooking demonstration today is really dedicated to my wife, Lisa, my beautiful wife, Lisa. These are going to be for you. And yes, we'll get to eat them later or another time as well. But in the meantime, let's get started. So we're going to make 2 types of gnocchi today. We're going to make a ricotta gnocchi, and we're also going to make a potato gnocchi, more traditional, right? And we're going to flavor them a little bit differently as well. So maybe some exciting, something a little bit different than you typically would get. All right. So ricotta gnocchi, what I love about working with ricotta gnocchis is that it's so simple, right? There's no cooking involved where you got to boil the potatoes. But in this particular one, there's none. What's nice about it is that you kind of work with it, you roll them out, you cut them, you cool them off, let them get nice and firm, and then you cook them. Really simple. Nothing to do, no pre-cooking the potatoes and cooling them down. But let's talk about the ingredients here. And let's talk about gnocchi ingredients, the 3 major things that you have going on with gnocchis, right? You have the differences, we have potato and we have ricotta, right? So these are your bases, right? Potato and your ricotta. You can also use goat cheese. You can use a sweet potato if you like, but that's your base, right? So you have a base. So this is the autonomy of a gnocchi. Second, you have your structure. That's your flour. In this case, I'm going to be doing some whole wheat with the ricotta, and I'm going to use all-purpose flour with the potato. We'll come back to that in a second. Then you have an egg, and the egg is your binder. So we're going to put an egg in each one. And then finally, we have seasoning. So in this case, we have cheeses, right? We have some salt and peppers. So what's the autonomy? You have your base, you have your flour, your structure. You can use a gluten-free flour if you like. You could change up different flours, okay? Then you have your binder, which is your egg, and then you have your seasoning. So that's the autonomy of a gnocchi, right? Essentially, it's a dumpling. And it doesn't have to be so perfect. And what's really great about this is that the kids have a great time with it. So whether it's your kids or your grandkids, you roll them out, you cut them, you cook them, and whatever's left over, you freeze, and you cook them another time. All right, so let's get started real quick. So with the ricotta cheese, normally you want to make sure that the ricotta is dry. So in the case of this particular one, I drained this overnight, and believe it or not, it wasn't a lot of water in it. So if you start with a really good dry ricotta to begin with, it's not going to have a lot. The little bit extra on the bottom here, we're just going to take out with a little paper towel, so we get it, this water, so it's nice and dry. Now, important to note about gnocchis, to keep them light, okay, you want to make sure you're as dry as possible. So you don't want to put so much flour where it's absorbing it. So that's where the trick comes in, is you want to put less flour to it so it keeps nice and light. All right, so really simple. We have 1 cup of ricotta cheese, actually 1 pound, my apologies. 1 pound of ricotta cheese. We have about 1.5 to 2 cups of flour here, okay? And we're going to put 1 egg in this one. So we put the egg in there. Pretty simple, right, so far. I got about 1/4 cup of Pecorino cheese, and we'll talk about the Pecorino and the Parmesan cheeses and the differences between what they do. Mix this really simply, right? So all the wet ingredients are mixed together, okay? So now we're going to put some salt in it, seasoning, right? We put the cheese, we put salt. So what I want to do with this one is I want to make a herb gnocchi. So we're going to take some basil, a little bit of thyme, and I'm going to put a little bit of sage. So these are herbs from my garden, right? You can put a lot more if you like. You can put 1. You can just omit them if you want. Okay, we're going to put a little fresh herbs in here. They're nice and vibrant. They smell great. perfect time of the year right now. So you can put in as much as you want. I have it written down as 2 or 3 tablespoons. Get them nice and fine. Okay, so they incorporate well. So with the herbs, you want to do a quick little rinse and then just dry them off with a paper towel. These were good. I kind of rinsed the whole thing before I came here, so we're not really worried about them being dirty. So I got the herbs inside here. Now, when it comes to the herbs, I try not to put herbs that are going to take time to cook, like a rosemary or a lot of sage, where you want to cook with those, where you want to get that sappy flavor out. So we got a little fresh herbs in here, okay? So right now, so far so good. Ricotta, some egg, 1 egg actually. Ricotta, egg, salt, and the pecorino. Now we're going to add the flour. Now, I'm going to do flour half and half. Now, the thing about the flour is I have whole wheat flour in this one. Like I said to you earlier, you can use any flour you want. The ratios are relatively the same. You'll have to adjust it accordingly, okay? And the reason why I say that is because wheat flour is a little bit more coarse, so it absorbs a little differently, okay? Especially if you get a stone ground, so it's not as fine. If you're using a semolina or you're using a 00 Italian flour, that's going to be different too. So this is sticky, so it needs a little bit more, okay? Then we're going to get our hands dirty. So what's nice about this particular one is there's no cooking, right? I took the ricotta cheese, I drained it. If it was dry enough, it didn't need a lot of draining. I added the egg to it. I added the flour. I seasoned it. There's no work involved. What's the main difference between the two, the potato and the ricotta? Is that ricotta is actually going to cost you a little bit more money. It's more expensive than the potato, right? We know that. That's pretty obvious. And also, the fat content. That's obvious too. So I did a full fat ricotta. I didn't get a low fat one. So just a little bit more here. And it feels pretty good. And then we're going to roll this one out and we're going to cut them. So pretty simple so far. It's a little sticky, but we're able to roll that. Now, I did this as whole wheat because I wanted to have a different texture than the regular one, the regular flour. But again, like I said, you could change up your flour. You can get a gluten-free flour if you want. So this is a tad sticky, so just enough to work with. And when you make this, and you see how simple it is, okay, you'll say, why do I ever buy these? Okay, well, time, I get it, you know, but pretty simple, feels really good. I don't want to put too much flour because the more flour I have on it, the heavier they become. What's the key to gnocchis is making them nice and light and fluffy, right? So we got this here. They're relatively good right now. A little bit more. Let it absorb a little bit more, and we're good here. So leave this one here for a second, and we're going to make the potato one next. So pretty simple so far, right? Not too much to do. Let that sit for a little bit. Let it rest. All right, simple so far, right? We got ricotta, whole wheat with a little bit of herb in that one, okay? And we'll put this aside. Next, we're going to work with potato. So the potato, a little more traditional. So let's talk about the potatoes real quick before we get into the whole making of everything. I got some russet potatoes. Russet potatoes work really well. The starch content is good. Yukons and lower starch content, they don't hold it the same way. They're not as light and fluffy. Sometimes they're a little watery, okay? When you put them in the pot, okay, when you see this over here, it's important that you keep them submerged, right? So they're completely submerged. The water's covering them all the way. And I'm cooking them in the skin, also known as cook them in their jackets. So I cook them in the skin. Now, you can absolutely overcook potatoes. So you think you make a mashed potato? Well, the starch breaks down, and then it gets really runny and gummy, and they have no structure to them. Now, that's not what we want with this one. We want to keep the starch in here. So cooking it in the skin is really good. Now, these are cooked already, so we're not going to cook this other one here. The important thing about cooking these potatoes is that you cook them, you cool them. I think they work a little bit easier when you kind of peel them when they're a little bit on the warm side. So you cool them a little bit so it's easy to handle. Now, some recipes call for them to be baked, and that's a good way of doing it because you're not putting water into it. Remember I said to you, the more moisture, then the more flour, then the heavier they become. So we want to avoid that, right? So if you want to put them in the oven and bake them, or you make baked potatoes one night, you make a few extra baked potatoes, and then you use them for gnocchi the next day. Pretty simple. It's not easy, not difficult to do. And this is a little bit a lot less money than a ricotta. But it's a little more work because you got to peel them and you got to cook them and cool them and peel them. Not that big of a deal. But if you're making a large amount or you don't have the time to do all that and you want to do something kind of fun, it's easy. Throwing that together with the kids with the ricotta cheese, it's simple. All right, so we have our potatoes right here. And we already cooked them, we already cooled them, we already peeled them, they're ready to go. And we're going to use a food mill, also known as a ricer. You can use a masher if you want. What's nice about the ricer is that it gets a little bit finer, okay? And that way when you incorporate it, you get a lighter potato, a lighter gnocchi. In this case, we're not going to use that one. We got the ricer right here. So we'll take these guys out. So we're making 2 gnocchis at the same time, right? Put this right over, this opens up a little bit so it goes right in. Simple, simple. Put this in here. If it doesn't get all the way down, just crush them. Then the weight puts them through. Okay? And you see it's going through. Perfect. So put the rest in here, crush them all up. Get this guy down, push them, and sometimes they get a little clogged. There we go. See, they come out a little bit lighter. And they're kind of like rice, which is the term why we call it a ricer. Takes a little bit of work. You'll get there. And then, if it doesn't get all the way through, you can kind of just mash them with the masher, the final amount to it that you need. And also, what's happening is that this is for crushing it from the top too, so you can certainly use it as well. Okay, so we're very excited to offer this nice Italian dinner tonight, but this is a meatless dinner, so it's a vegetarian dinner. And I think once you eat it, you're full. You won't be craving any type of meat. So a nice vegetarian dinner tonight. We got these gnocchis that we're going to make. We're going to make a nice salad and a great little treat for dessert. So they're getting nice and mushy. I think they're pretty good up here too. I'm just going to steal this in here. I think we're good. So you need about 2 pounds of potatoes. That's somewhere between 3 and 4 potatoes. And then you'll just go ahead and use what you need. If it's a little much, or a little too much, then you can add a little more flour. If it's a little less, you add a little less flour. So as I said to you, you're going to use the recipe as a guide because you have to adjust based on the water content. Okay? So that's the thing about gnocchis is that you can turn around and say, oh yeah, I need the recipe exact. It's not going to quite be exact because your potatoes are slightly different sizes. Maybe you boil them as opposed to roasting them, as I mentioned, right, or bake them. So that stuff makes a big difference on how it's going to work. But you get the idea that you're going to have to adjust and it has to feel really good. All right, same idea, right? We're going to put our cheese. Now, for the first one we did with the whole wheat and ricotta, I happened to put pecorino. Because pecorino goes really good with ricotta, kind of naturally goes together, but you could certainly change them up. This one I put Parmesan cheese, a little more traditional. Okay, now I got our egg over here. Okay, and then what I want to do with this one, we're going to put salt in it as well, but remember we're going to salt when we cook them later. The salt the water, salt the sauce that's going to go with it. We're going to put some black pepper in this one, okay? We're going to do a black pepper gnocchi, potato gnocchi, okay? And now we have our flour here. So, slightly different texture, right? I know I'm using the same spoon, but that's okay. Slightly different texture on the potatoes. And remember, the egg is what binds it. So you don't need an awful lot because the more moisture you put in, that's moisture to the egg, okay? So you got to smell the cheese in that one. It's kind of coming right out. All right, so we're going to mix the egg and the potato with the cheese, the pepper, and a pinch of salt, right? So that's almost all incorporated. I want to make sure I don't have little runny yellow spots on the egg, on the yolk. That way it's incorporated and the structure stays there. This one seems to be a little drier than the ricotta, so it may not need as much on the flour. Now I'm using AP flour, all-purpose flour as we call it. Bread flour may give it too much structure, you know, and cake flour will be too light. So AP flour, all-purpose flour, is kind of the neutral one that kind of works. So I'm just mixing this, just pulling it from the side so it incorporates a little bit. Okay. I like to make the ricotta gnocchis because it's so much easier. I like the flavor of them. But when you make the potato gnocchis, they come out a little bit lighter, a little bit fluffier, a little pillowy, which is great, right? More traditional, the dumpling. Now, I also sometimes I use goat cheese instead of ricotta cheese, which is really nice, but it's drier, so you get kind of a little bit of a lighter texture to it. Okay, this one's pretty, doesn't need as much flour. Okay. Down here is a little wet, so we'll just put a little flour there, come back to it. And we're just going to work it just a little bit. Okay, a little bit sticky. So, it's very similar to what we just did, approximately the same amount. This potato. Okay. Now, at this point, we're going to test it. Let's just say we make a mistake. It's not enough egg. It falls apart. So I got a little pot of boiling water right over here. I'm just going to test a little bit because now you can still fix it, right? It's easy enough to fix it if something's not right. So we'll just take a little piece here. Let's do the same thing with the ricotta one too. Take a little piece. I'm just going to test it. Make sure that everyone's doing okay. This is the time to fix it if you have to. So it's a little sticky, which is fine. That's what we want. Leave that over here. We got our black pepper in that one. Okay. So just because I want to make sure it cooks the way it's supposed to, and I'm going to taste it in its true form. I'm just going to do these little pillows right there. So you see the difference in the color, right? This one here is the whole wheat with the ricotta, and this is the potato. So if all things are good, we're good to go. That's going to be great. So I have these little guys right here. I'm just going to do a test. Let that water come back up. So let's talk about the water real quick. Just like any pasta, you have to make sure you season the water, right? Season the water with some salt. You don't need oil. Some of you may disagree with me, but I will tell you, put the oil floats to the top, and when you drain it, it goes right down the drain. Not necessary. And you wasted all that good olive oil. So you don't need oil. Just salt in the water, roll and boil. Okay? So let that come back up, and then we'll just test these. Now these are going to take no time at all. And then we'll cut them, and then we'll go ahead and make our next things. Okay? And I got some fun sauces, really simple, a really great simple Filetto Pomodoro sauce that we're going to make. Filet of tomatoes, really simple. And then we're also going to do something like fresh from the garden, right? It's tomatoes that you grab, cherry tomatoes. We're going to do something with some fennel, and we'll come back to that one in a little bit. All right, so we have our two doughs here. We'll put them side by side. Okay? And what's nice also is that you kind of want them to sit up a little bit. So once we roll them and cut them, we'll put them in the refrigerator, let them get cold, let them get tight. and then they're good to go. You can make them at this point, right after you cut them the way you need to, and you could freeze them. But if you do freeze them, you want to make sure you kind of put them on a sheet pan, and this sheet pan will freeze them with, as we call them, IQF, individually quick frozen. We can't quick freeze them, but the idea is that you're going to freeze them individually, and then once they're hard, you take them out, put them in a Ziploc bag, and they're good to go. Anyway, we'll come back to that one in a second. So I'm waiting for this water to come up. In the meantime, the dough's resting anyway, which is something we wanted to do. Want to let it rest. You want it to reabsorb. We don't want the flour work too much, so we'll let it kind of go for a little bit before we actually get to the next point. Once this comes up, we're just going to cook 1 or 2 and see how long it cooks, and just double test it. Just to test it and make sure it's okay. So that's what that is. All right, so it's important that the pasta water is cooking at the highest temperature. So the word, is this pasta? Well, of course it's pasta. The word pasta means paste, so this is a paste, right? So that's what this is. So we want to test these guys. Potato feels really good. We'll see how the ricotta does. All right, so we got the water boiling. We got salt in that. We're going to make sure this guy comes up really good. That didn't take long to do. We're going to cut these, and we're going to go ahead and chill them up a little bit, and then when we're ready to cook them, they're not going to take long. You notice that. If we were going to freeze them, we'll talk about this later again. We'll mention it again. You want to cook them in small batches at a time because you don't want that water temperature to drop so much that the dough doesn't set up. So what's happening with the hard boil, which I say to you, a rolling boil, is that the egg sets up and the flour sets up. And that you want to do right away so you get structure. If it comes up slowly, they start to fall and be mushy. And eventually they'll harden up as well, but you'll have these all little things that are mushy. So you look, these guys are floating there. They're kind of dancing. Look, they're going around each other. You can see the difference in the color too, which is great. So they don't need much time to float, right? Once they're cooked, remember, ricotta you can eat raw. The potatoes already been cooked. It's really with the egg setting up and putting it all together. Once they're coming up, a couple minutes of a boil, and they're good to go. So want to make sure it's not doughy, okay? And they're floating, and these are great. These are just about done. So they're holding up. That's what I want to make sure. That's why I'm going to test it. Here's the time to fix it. If I need to throw an egg in it and fix it, maybe a little bit more, maybe your flour ratio is off, or your potatoes you have a little bit more than you thought, or the ricotta you didn't eat as much as you thought you would, or you ate too much, and you're like, oh, you're testing it. All right, so these are good, right? Those are good just like that. That's just the test. Now, you notice I cut them. I kind of left them whole like that. We could talk about that in a second, what that looks like, why we're going to cut them, why we're going to use a fork to get lines on them, different things you're going to do. So we're going to lower this guy. We'll come back to this one a little bit. Just want to test them, make sure they're good. Nice and light. Really tasty. The cheese comes through. You could put as much cheese as you want. All right. So let's do our ricotta. It's pretty much ready. Let me grab this guy out of the way first so we can work. All right. So you might have to have a little extra flour with you because as you roll it, it gets a little bit absorbed. So cut these into 4. And the reason why I say cut them into 4 is just they're easy to handle. And put them out of the way. Put a little flour here. Roll this guy by hand. It's so easy to make and so fun to make. Okay, got that one there. A little extra flour, you can feel it sticking a little bit. Nice and light. So the reason why I'm using whole wheat is because the fiber content is a little bit better for folks that want to have a little bit of whole wheat as opposed to using white flour, right? So that's good to have. So it's just an alternative I wanted to show you. That's number 2. So you can make this dough the day before to this point and then cut it the next day. But since you already did all the work of getting the place dirty, the bowls dirty, the counter dirty, well, why do you want to turn around and do it all over again? Just cut them all one time and get them done. Freeze what you need. Get this over here. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's the beauty of it. Okay? But they feel really nice and light. This is the ricotta one, remember. So this feels really nice and light. Great flavor on them. Okay? So we were talking about the cheese real quick, right? Let's talk about that. Parmesan cheese is a little bit more traditional when it comes to the potato. Pecorino, it's that sheep's milk that really gives you that little tang to it. Kind of stands out. Parmesan is a little smoother. Okay? All right. So we'll just go and cut these like this. We're going to move these out of the way, and then we'll start to roll them. So there's a little fancy gadget they have that you roll them on there and you get the lines on it. So do you need lines? Not necessarily, but they are important based on the sauce you're going to work with. The lines hold the sauce a little differently. If you were doing a baked pasta, maybe a baked gnocchi of some type, you won't need lines because it's going to be submerged in the sauce. If you're doing a cream sauce, probably don't need lines either because the cream kind of coats it, right? If you're doing a nice light one, you might want to keep them pillowy. Like this is nice and pillowy. I wouldn't even, if I want to do them like that. But some lines are really good because your tomato sauce, or maybe you're not using a tomato sauce, you're going to use like an oil and garlic type wine sauce. Maybe you're going to want lines to kind of hold the flavor onto it, okay? So if we were doing sweet potato, same idea. Now sweet potato by nature has a softer texture. So you may have to add just a tad more flour than you normally would. So, but the idea is the same. Okay, you just use that base recipe I have that you'll see on the website. And then you can go ahead and just adjust it at that point. All right, so a couple things. You can leave them like this. Pillows like that, if you like. Nice, these nice big ones. I don't have to do anything to them. Perfect, these nice little dumplings just the way they are. Or you can take this little fork, okay, and just go from end to end. And this makes a little bit of a crevice in the middle, holds the sauce a little bit, okay. The other way to do it is this, you can roll it this way. So there's, you get a little things coming up, if you can see that. These little, if you get a close up in there, you can see those little lines coming up. So there's one way, there's a couple different ways of doing it, okay? Is there a right way, wrong way? No, whatever way you like, whatever's easy. This is fun. You can just do them just the way they are. Again, it's really based on what your end product's going to be, your sauce is going to be with it. So we got these nice little pillows. Do a few more of these like this. Mix them up. So far, so good. Simple. Try and get them as even as possible. There's a couple small ones here. That's okay. I never met a gnocchi I didn't like, so they're all good. All right? So enjoy them. You'll have fun with them. This is great for the kids. Get the kids involved. Have fun with it. Okay? So really simple stuff here. We'll do a few this way. You kind of just roll it. That one here is a little rounder, okay? But you see, it's not difficult. Now, you take these, we're going to put them in the refrigerator for a few minutes while we work on the next one, and we're going to let them get nice and cold and set up a little bit. The other thing about this, if we were going to freeze them, okay, we would put them like this, let them get cold, put them in the freezer, and when they get nice and hard, just put them in a bag, and then you're ready to go for another time, okay? So we have a couple different styles here. They don't have to be perfect. This is fun. It's made simple. That's the whole premise of the show. Cooking made simple. Gnocchi's made simple. Okay. If you're getting a little sticky, just kind of put it on here and roll it back and forth. Okay. I think we got most of them. Might have missed a couple. It's okay. All right. And this is, like I said, this is fun with the kids. On a rainy night, a cold night, certainly not a summer night, but certainly those nights you can just turn around and do these things. Now, I do recommend that you try not to let them pile, because then they'll a little tacky and they'll start to stick to each other. Okay, but it's important to get them cold, which is what I really want to do as well. You saw me cook to order really quickly, 1 or 2. That doesn't take long. You can do that, okay? But remember, it's a pasta. It's a paste, right? We got these right here. Okay, so we don't have to do too much to this one. Simple, simple. Get these out of the way. And then we're going to go right to our potato. Same idea. We're going to roll them, cut them into 4, and just start to cut them up. Okay, so we'll put this guy in the refrigerator, get them nice and cold, so they set up a little bit better. And now we'll come to our potato one. All right, same idea with the potato. So we're going to work the flour, but we don't want to work too much flour in it, right? Same thing. It's a little bit here. We're going to cut these into 4. Down the middle, down the middle, down the middle. Okay? So you give a piece to each grandchild, let them, or child at home, let them play with it. They have fun with it. They're making their own food. They're eating it. They're having a great time. Now, this one has the black pepper in it, but you can certainly omit that. You can change up the cheeses, okay? Don't feel like, oh my God, I can't make this recipe because I don't have that cheese. Well, of course you can make the recipe. Of course you can change things around. Whatever works for you, okay? So, knife is a little sticky because I cut the other one. So we're just going to rub it on here. Now, on these here, I'm not going to roll them because I like the potatoes to be like fluffy. Now, I got a little water here, so be careful because then you're going to have a sticky... Remember, water's not our friend when making this dumpling. So dry them up a little bit. Okay? Put these here. I like them just like this. Now, as I said to you earlier, when we cook these later, we have to make sure the water is boiling and set up really good. Otherwise, they'll turn to mush. So we want to be careful. Okay? So right after we get these gnocchis done, we're going to make a couple of sauces really quickly. They're not going to take long. Now, this one here, I don't want to waste them, so we'll put them back in. He's on the small side. So keep in mind when you're cooking these gnocchis and you're seasoning the sauces, remember we have cheese in it, we have black pepper in it, right? And we have a pinch of salt. So when you're making the sauce later on, you want to know your ingredients so you're not making it too much. So in this particular case here, what I like about these is they're nice and puffy, right? Look at that. I like the way this one looks. This looks great. All right, so we don't need to do too much to it. Sometimes you put a little scant of flour just so they don't stick to each other. All right, just a little bit. All right, so we have our potato gnocchis. They're going to go inside the refrigerator, get nice and cold. If I wanted to freeze them now, I would put them in the freezer, give or take an hour or so, let them get hard, take them out, put them in a bag, and you're good to use them another time. All right, so we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. So now we're ready to start working with our gnocchis and the sauce for it. So let's get the sauces going because they're pretty simple, but they do take a little bit of time. Our gnocchis have been in the refrigerator. They're getting nice and firm. They're going to cook up real nice. We're going to let the water come back to a quick boil. Okay, in the meantime, we're going to work on 2 particular sauces. The first one we're going to do is very simply, it's going to be a little caramelized fennel with cherry tomatoes. And I want to get that going first because that's going to take a little bit of time to caramelize, okay? But the secret to it is keep the pan a little bit on the dry side, okay? And cut your fennel on the thin side, okay? We're going to add a little garlic to this. We're going to add some some shallots to it. So you get really onions and garlic to it. So, you know, when you think of an onion, right, it has a nice assertive flavor, but a shallot's a little more refined. So we're going to use some shallot. It's a little more refined. It's a quicker way of cooking this. Both these sauces are quick. One's more of a filling sauce, and the other one's more of a real sauce, right? It's going to have body to it, okay? Okay, so we have our fennel here. We'll take a little bit of the shallots right now. We're going to cut the shallots for both items. We're going to do it, right? So nice and thin. You can cut them into rings and cut them any way you want, okay? Okay, so while we cut the rest of the vegetables, okay, I want to bring the fennel right here. Hear that sound? Okay. We're gonna let this caramelize a little bit. So let's lower this temperature because I don't want to burn them, right? So this olive oil that I have here is a really great extra virgin olive oil. That's a nice neutral flavor to it. It's not overly spicy or, you know, sharp at the end, okay? So we're gonna let that guy caramelize, lower the temperature just a little bit, so the secret to caramelization is kind of going on the slow side, not too high and too harsh, because then it burns. The caramelization burns, okay? So smell that. It smells so great already. All right, so I got some fennel working over here. I got some shallots working over here, cutting. I'm gonna put some aside for the Filetto Pomodoro, and I'm also gonna put some inside there in a minute. Now, of course, I gotta have garlic. What's a pasta dish without garlic, right? So I'm slicing this like that. It's one way to slice it, right? You can also break it and then crush it. Okay? This to me, sometimes it's nice and rustic, but sometimes it's a little bit too chunky. All right, so we see the caramelization happening right here. See that color? Beautiful, looks great. What happens when you caramelize something? The natural sugars come out and become caramel, hence the name caramelization, caramel apples, right? Same idea. So that's what you want to happen. You want the natural sugars come out and let them get brown. It has a deeper, richer flavor, roasted, right? All right, so we have this guy working. Now is the time to add our shallots, okay? This is going to go on one of the gnocchis. Take your pick. Really, one doesn't really which one matters, but I think I'm going to serve this one with the potato gnocchi. Okay, kind of goes with that lighter concept. All right, we have a little garlic here. We're going to use this sliced garlic for here. All right, so let this caramelize. So we have a nice heavy gauge pan that's even all around. So you get a nice even cooking. That's when you invest in a good set of pans and pots. That's why you want them. You want a nice even cooking, okay? This happens to be a non-stick. It's embedded inside the metal, so it's not a Teflon coating, okay? We still want to be careful with scraping it. I'm trying this not to really touch it. Okay, so that's going there. We're gonna let this guy go for a second or two longer, and then we'll put some tomatoes in it. We got some salt. Okay, and we're going to put some pepper. Okay, now I got some great fresh herbs from the garden right behind me. So what do we want to put in? Let's put a little sage, right? Sage is kind of a good combination of things that go inside gnocchis, right? It's kind of traditional in a lot of ways. You see that often, right? A little sage here, a little bit of fresh thyme. Okay, that's caramelizing nice. You want the garlic to cook a little bit. These are nice and vibrant because they're really fresh. Put this guy in here. Okay, so sage and thyme need to be cooked a little bit. Okay, you don't want to put them in and then serve them raw. See how nice caramelization happening? The garlic's getting a little caramelized. See, I'm not afraid to touch it. It's okay to touch. So now we're going to put a little bit more oil. It's getting a little dry. And then this is a great oil that's going to go on top of our gnocchis. So we got that going there. We're going to put these cut cherry tomatoes in here. Okay. If you got them from the garden, they're quite... I actually pulled out about a dozen this yesterday. And wasn't enough for what we needed to do here. And I couldn't help myself and I ate them. So anyway, we got this going over here. This nice, beautiful little cherry tomatoes right in there. This is not going to take long to cook. So now here's the thing. If the vegetables are a little bit raw, it's okay. It's not going to hurt you to have a little bit of raw vegetables, right? Crudité, it's okay. This is a nice, vibrant, fun, right? We're going to add some lemon to this. This is a really nice, beautiful dish here. All right. We got our pasta water going here. We're going to lower it down. This is my face. Okay, so there we go. That's just about done. So that doesn't need any more cooking. Simple. Okay? So we got salt and pepper in that one. Now, just because I'm going to use this pan again, when I sear the gnocchis, okay, I'm going to take this out. We're going to hold them. This is less on the low side. All right, so now we got our first set of gnocchis going in. So a nice rolling boil. Okay. Nice olive oil. Why am I putting olive oil in there? Well, I got that pan on because we're going to sear them right afterwards. So let's get this rolling boil going. So if you're cooking your gnocchis from a frozen state, don't cook too much at one time. Cook a little bit, take them out, put them on your plate, put your sauce on them. Next round, do it like that. Gnocchis will not do well if the water loses its temperature, right? It goes down. So a nice rolling boil, okay? And lots of water. All right, so this is coming up right there. There you go. There's our boiling water. We're going to put a couple in here. And these are the potato ones, right? These are potato with the black pepper and the Parmesan cheese. Okay? So as I'm putting them in here, I'm making sure they're not sticking to each other. So if they were in the freezer, they would be fine, right? So a little bit. Now notice I have this spoon here. This is actually, I got this at a Chinese market. They have these great little spoons here. And these are great because they're nice size. They kind of cup a little bit and it lets the water out, so they're perforated. So real good. Let's get this water back up quickly. Now you got to be careful with this because you're going to put them in here that will splatter. So if you worry about your stove getting dirty, well, you again can't do this. Okay? But, so be careful. All right? What we'll do is, just to keep it from really making a big mess, we'll go ahead and put them right on this paper towel so they don't splatter too much. See? They're cooking over here, starting to float. They don't need much time. Once they're coming up to a nice boil, they're good to go. It's our first round. So you're cooking this for some friends at home, right? Or you're cooking for some kids. You cook a little bit at a time. Maybe you could put a little bit more than I had here, but you put maybe 2 dishes at a time. You make them in small batches. You get your oil nice and warm. Keep it warm here. And then we'll see, make sure it's nice and hot so they sear. And that's the important thing on this one. I want these to sear. Okay? But it has to be hot, and these have to be cooked. So you cannot cook them from a raw state into that. That's not going to work. All right. So these are coming up to a nice boil here. Look at that. Beautiful. Okay. So how do you see if the oil's ready? I put a little pinch of flour, see if it starts to cook up a little bit. All right. Let these set up. They're a little soft yet. They're not quite set. Just maybe another minute. And these are good to go. We're going to drain them on a paper towel so they don't splatter. Put them on here. Sear them up. Take them out. And we're going to top it with our beautiful caramelized fennel with tomato. Your first set of gnocchis. Okay. And then we have a beautiful, simple dessert. We have a fantastic, nice Giambotta salad. Okay. and we'll be good to go. All right, so these are just about, they're floating. See how they're floating to the top? I usually like wait a minute or so after they start to float, make sure they're completely set. But you don't really have the risk of overcooking them, right? They don't get too mushy. The egg sets up in them, once we said, that's the structure that you needed, right? That's the binder. All right, so we have our potato gnocchis coming out. Just so I don't have a mess, I'm draining on here. They're nice and hot still, okay? These are cooked perfect. Okay, they're nice and light, nice and pillowy. This is the one I didn't put a line on them, right? I just kind of cut them straight out. Look how good they are, like simple dumplings. That's what these are, okay? All right, so that's good to go. I'm gonna let this one come back up because I got something else to cook right after this. All right, so these are drying up. The oil's getting good there, let's see. Hear that sound? We're not gonna cook this long, just enough to get some color. So that's the starch boiling there. See that white stuff that's coming up from the pasta water? That's the starch. So that's why if we were going to cook our next round, we would let the water come up. Okay? So heaters are nice and firm, getting a little bit brown. Okay, we'll just put this off to the side 1 second. Okay, and we're almost good to go here on this one. So the gnocchis are already cooked. What I'm trying to do right now is get a little color, a little depth and complexity to them. Okay? Now, I use the same pan to cook the vegetables with. So one pan, right? I got a boiling pot and I got a saute pan. That's the key to really simple cooking. Cooking made simple is clean up. At the end, really, you're gonna clean up really good. You gotta make sure that your cleanup is easy. Use one pan if you can, right? Minimize having multiple pans. All right, so for those of you that have an electric stove, and I have one myself, like a similar to this, right, on induction, okay, it takes a little bit more time to react. If you have a flame, right, gas, it goes a little quicker. But either way, it's important that a nice heavy gauge pan works great for both of them. I like the flexibility of the induction. I can go around like this, where you may not get that the same way with your gas. All right, so we're letting this get nice and sear it up a little bit. Okay. Now, if you wanted to make a cauliflower gnocchi, right, and make it gluten-free, use cauliflower as the base instead of potato, and then get a gluten-free flour, right? Something that works for you. You can do that. And then if we talked about the sweet potato, cauliflower type of gnocchi, you can do those things. All right, so get these nice little brown. Let's get these browned up, and then we're just going to top it, and this is good to go. So don't push it around too much. Don't mush them. See, they're nice and firm still. They have a nice texture to them. So the recipes we're working with today are really simple. They're really kind of basic fundamentals in terms of flour to potato or flour to ricotta ratio. So they work out really well. You could adjust them any way you want, but it's a basic fundamental. You can certainly use what we have. It's basically, 1.5 cups to 2 cups of flour to 1 pound or so of the ricotta or the potato. Essentially, that's what that is, right? Okay, I see different recipes online. All right, this has nice color to it. Okay, that's good right here. I don't need to do too much to it. They're holding up really nice. Come back to this. And now, I'm going to make our second one in a second, but I want to finish this guy off. So we have these nice firm gnocchis that have a nice color to them, right? And then we're going to put our fennel with our tomato, the garlic, and then you got your nice, beautiful oil on this one. Remember, this has a little lemon in it too, right? And then just a little bit of nice black pepper. Got your oil on that one. I'll put the little basil here. And there's your first gnocchi. That's the potato gnocchi with the caramelized fennel and cherry tomatoes. Okay, so we got our first gnocchi done, right? Now we're gonna make our second one. But before we do that, we gotta make a really simple sauce. It's a filetto pomodoro. So what is that? Filet of tomatoes, really simple. Lots of different variations of recipes. Some have prosciutto, some have pancetta. I have mine very simple, very clean, very simple, okay? So I got these beautiful canned cherry tomatoes, or you can get some San Manzano. The important thing about this, and I'm not going to tell everyone how to make tomato sauce over here because there's plenty of Italian people in Riviera that don't know how to make tomato sauce, and I'm not going to argue with you. And everyone's mother's tomato sauce is the best. So don't yell at me. That's just my opinion on how it goes. But anyway, what I'm going to do here is a really simple, we're going to put some shallots in here, right? Some great olive oil. We're going to go quickly with this stuff, okay? Now, you can use a couple different things. I got some nice garlic. The garlic I used earlier was the chunky pieces. This holds up a little bit more to cooking as opposed to the slices. You'll see that the caramelization is starting to happen with the shallots. That's okay, okay? Now, really gently. Don't get it on your clothes. Now, this is a nice raw tomato sauce, okay? We're going to put a little bit of water in here, okay? Some salt, some black pepper. We're going to get some basil. And some oregano. Now, the basil and the oregano. Basil's going in whole. The oregano's going in whole. If you want to use a little dry herbs, please do so. But this is a fresh, quick tomato sauce. Doesn't take long. Okay? It's a little bit getting thick already. That's okay. Because don't forget, remember I told you, know your ingredients. The ingredients here, it's in a puree. So puree's thick. So if you need to develop a little more flavor, just add some water and let's let it come down nice and slow, okay? Okay, and you're just gonna let this go. We'll adjust it when it's ready, and we'll make sure it tastes great, which it will be, okay? So, scrape the bottom. These nice cherry tomatoes, it's just a really quick, fresh tomato. Don't let these herbs go to waste here, okay? Now, we have the whole wheat ricotta gnocchis that we're going to use next, okay? And that's what this water's going to come back up, and we're going to cook that, and that's going to be 2 seconds away, and we're going to see how this guy's tastes. Taste your ingredients. Know it before you're working with it. Know it in stages. Know it in the beginning when you're first working with it. Know it halfway through the process, and then know it at the end of the process, right? So it's got a nice little thickness to it. It's still, now it's loose because I added water to it. Let it cook down. If it's too thick, add a little water. If it's too thin, let it cook down. Okay? This is nice, fresh, vibrant taste. You don't need sugar in it. Don't put sugar in it. You don't need to have sugar. Vibrant, acidic, fresh tomato. I know this is the can, but these have a nice plumpness to it. So nice about these is that from the other one we did, we have the skin on them, and that's very vibrant. They're going to be really vibrant to it. This one here has a little more texture to it, which is okay, right? All right, so we got our water working here, boiling, okay? This does not take long to cook. So we have our sauce working, a filetto pomodoro, and we got our water coming up. Now remember, I got different sizes here. I got the fat ones, I got the ones I rolled, I got the ones that I folded over. So I got little different things happening here. So they may slightly be different from one another. But remember I told you, the gnocchi is pretty durable. They hold up to a little bit overcooking. All right, whole wheat, ricotta, and herbs. So nice vibrant herbs I have in here. Okay, this is cooking right here. All right, now I'm not going to put too much because I don't want it to bring the temperature down. Okay, we're going to let this come back up. All right, so really simple. Easy, easy, easy. This is getting nice and thicker, and it's vibrant, and we'll dress it up with a little olive oil, and we're going to finish it with a little Ricotta Salad cheese. Yes, you got Ricotta Cheese gnocchi, and you got Pecorino in that one. But we're going to put a little Ricotta Salad on top, kind of tilt the whole thing together. That little salt to it. Okay? I think it needs a little bit more black pepper in it. I tasted it. It was a little bit flat, in my opinion. So need a little pinch more salt and pepper. Be careful with the salt, because we're going to have Ricotta Salad on top. And don't forget, we have salted, put salt inside the gnocchi, and we put salt in the water. So you don't want to overdo it. But just know how you're doing it. Okay? So this is coming out nice. It's cooking up really, really well. These tomatoes, they're going to burst in your mouth. That's the beauty. That's the whole point of this, the fillet of tomatoes. They're not supposed to be cooked long. They're supposed to be vibrant into your mouth. Not as vibrant and firm as the cherry tomatoes we used. I want a little texture to it. But I also want, I burst into it, you get this nice acidic, you got the paste, the puree that's kind of thickening up on the outside here. Okay, that's coming over there. This guy's coming up. Okay, the temperature came down pretty quickly on this one, if you noticed that, right? So that's important to note. So I want to put a little bit more basil on these guys, a little bit more oregano. If you want to put, I like the fresh stuff in this one as opposed to the dry herbs, because I want that fresh flavor to it, okay? So there's a theory that you put the herbs in, the fine herbs at the end so they're more vibrant, or also if you cook with them so it kind of homogenizes in the flavor. I like to do them both. Early on we put it on top, inside when we cooked with it, and then I like to put a little bit now at this last minute. Now these tomatoes are breaking up a little bit. That's exactly what I want to happen. I want them just to break just a little bit so they got texture. This is nice and thick. This is done. Sauce is done. Simple. Okay? We're going to leave that guy alone. We're waiting for these guys to come up. They're coming up right now. We'll give them a minute or two on that one, and we're going to be beautiful to go. And we got two beautiful gnocchi dishes, homemade gnocchis. Okay? All right, so this is still cooking. We'll take them off the heat. Okay? And now we're just waiting on this guy. All done. All right. So, see how everything came together, right? We had the pasta, the gnocchis in the refrigerator cold. Okay? We made a quick sauce while they were cooking. Didn't take long to do this. This is quick, simple. Okay? The biggest thing is the gnocchi, making them ahead of time. But as we talked about earlier, you can make them right there. Cut them, boil them right there. Or if you make them the day before, you make a big enough batch, you freeze them. And then you just throw them in the pot of boiling water. All right, so these are almost done. I want that rolling boil to make sure the nice set on the inside. And this one I'm not going to fry. I'm not going to pan sear like at the other ones. Okay, I don't want to do that. I'm just showing you some variations. You could do a baked gnocchi. If you were doing a baked gnocchi, you would probably pre-cook these, chill them in ice water, put whatever cream, whatever sauce, whatever you're doing, then bake them in that, and that will heat up the rest of the way. That's different. So there's a couple different ways of doing it. We're going to do that today. Okay. All right. So this has got a nice rolling boil, coming up really good. This is made with whole wheat pasta, so it's a little bit more structure, a little bit more fiber in it, a little bit more nutrients, right? It's not refined flour. Okay. It's not made with semolina. You can use semolina. Okay. Semolina will probably give you more of a pasta type of experience. They're not perfect. That's what I love about them. They're rustic. Okay, they don't have to be perfect. Okay, if you need to, you can use a little bit of this pasta water right inside the sauce here. If you just need to kind of give it a little bit more. Where'd it go? Oh yeah, here we go. Right here. So just take a little splash of this right there. And now it's nice and moist again. It's not dry. It's got a beautiful, I like to put it right in the center. In Italy, they kind of toss it, right? That's what they do. They toss their pastas. You know, you see over here, and it has a nice little color to it. But if you toss it, it gets coated all around. Okay? There's that sauce right there. Okay? So to finish this dish, we'll put a little sprinkle of some really good, I like to call this love on top, baby. There we go. We got some nice extra virgin olive oil. Put it all together. Then a little Ricotta Salada. That gives you a nice natural creaminess. Okay. Pinch pepper. Right? And then we'll put some basil on the side here for look. And then there you go. There's your whole wheat ricotta gnocchis with a Filetto Pomodoro sauce. Welcome back. So right now we're going to make a Giambotta salad. So what's a Giambotta salad, right? Giambotta means everything in a pot or everything from the garden inside a pot, right? Cooked together. Well, kind of variation of that. What I like about this particular salad is I'm going to use everything I have available to me and just throw everything together. So it's nothing extremely creative in terms of that respect, but I do want to talk about some principles about what we're going to do here. And that's the key to about working with this particular salad. So our Giambotta salad is made up a little bit of everything, right? So first what we're going to do is we're going to make our dressing. So we have a really great olive oil that I actually, working with these folks to develop my own, which is my first ones here. And we're going to, eventually you'll hear more about that, but not today. We have some honey, local honey. We have some mustard. We have a couple of different vinegars. I'm going to go with the red vinegar today. Okay, we can use a white vinegar. You can use a white balsamic vinegar if you like. You can kind of try these other vinegars if you want. It's whatever you really want to work with, whatever you have around. Maybe you want a variation of the balsamics, the red, the dark one, the white one. I want a nice vibrantness of the red vinegar. So I'm going to start off with the vinegar first. And there's a reason why I want to go with the vinegar first, and I'll tell you all about that. So we're going to make, kind of remember those dressings with the pouch? You kind of put the oil and the vinegar in it and already seasoning. We'll kind of do that. This is nice. It's an unfiltered vinegar. And I'll talk about vinegar in a second and what that is really. It's the fermented grapes that go bad, right? Or whatever fruit you're working with. So we have this unfiltered red vinegar. You see it's a little cloudy, has a little more character to it. It's not as harsh. It's great. So I got this nice little Italian spice seasoning blend that I created. It's a little Sicilian blend, a little more oregano, rosemary forward, a little bit of lemon zest in that one. Okay, so that's just a little brand of the spice blend that I'm working on myself. Okay, so we got this here. Now, this is the important part. If you're using dry spices, and I'm happy to use this today, you want to let them sit in the vinegar for a couple minutes so they get reconstituted. And then the flavors, the oils get released. So that's what we're doing here. We're going to put this right in here. We're going to add a little bit of lemon. Okay, so I'm going to save this zest because I need it for the dessert. So I'm going to go ahead and zest this right now. Okay, and then I'm going to use the juice for here. So it's easy to handle while it's whole. So this is a dual purpose right now. So I'm just going to take the zest. This is for later. You could certainly put it inside here too if you want, but I just want to save this. Okay, and this particular one is good for me to have, so I'm just going to put this here, and that way it's done. That saved me a step. All right, so we'll come back to that guy in a second. All right, so we're going to take our lemon. So dual purpose. I got the zest that I'm using for the dessert. And why would you want to use zest? Sometimes you want to use the zest because you don't want the acid from the juice itself. You want the flavor. That's why zest comes in. Okay, in this case, I want the juice inside this dressing. So I got some nice lemon in here. Put it inside the dressing. I'm going to save this piece of lemon for later. I'm going to use it in 3 different ways. So now I'm going to put some mustard, this dressing here, the mustard, and a little bit of honey. Now, you can use sugar if you like. If you don't have honey, you can just put a pinch of it. And the reason why you want to put sugar or honey in it, it tones down the sharpness of the vinegar. Right now, I said it earlier, know your ingredient. Well, if your vinegar is really harsh, then you're going to want to kind of soften it up. If it's really sweet, like a white balsamic, for an example, or a dark balsamic, you probably don't want any of this in there. So it really depends on what your ingredients are. All right, so we got a little bit of vinegar. We have the mustard. We got the little bit of honey. Okay. We got the Sicilian blend that I'm working on. That's going to be a nice custom spice blend that I'm putting together. These herbs in there. Okay, I'm going to put some salt. Now, put salt in the vinegar dressing first and let it sit. Don't put it on your salad. It dissolves better inside here. A little bit of pepper. Okay, notice my pepper's coarse. I can control it. It could be assertive, so you might want to be careful with that. but it's a little more on the coarse side. So I got this stuff here working. Just mixing it. This dressing you can turn around and let it sit as long as you want. Now, I didn't put any oil yet. It's already good just the way it is. But now I got my great secret ingredient, my beautiful extra virgin olive oil from Italy. Okay. This is more on a kind of a neutral side. It's not really strong flavor. It's not bitter. So it's great for cooking as well as drizzling on top. Okay. Make it right inside here so now I can pour it. I'll taste it again. See how it goes. So, one thing I want you to know, when you taste something on volume like this, like a whole bunch, it hits your mouth differently. Okay, it's a little stronger. But then when you drizzle on your salad or whatever you're putting it on, it gets diluted, right? So it's a little stronger on your tongue right now, and you want it a little bit stronger because you don't want it to be diluted once it goes on it. So you want to be careful with that. In this case here, you definitely want a little extra. It's going to go a long way. All right, so that's our dressing. Pretty simple. All right, don't have to do too much to it. This is a nice dressing, simple to work with. Now, let's move these salt and pepper out of the way. So we got some arugula. If you got it from your garden, great. I got some escarole, or scarola as we like to say, right? Scarola. We got another scarola here. Now this scarola, you got to double wash it because it's really dirty. So make sure you double wash it. Okay? Nice Italian salad, all these great little strong flavors, right? Perfect. And some radicchio, right? Simple radicchio, nice bitterness to it. So, there's the beginning of our Giambotta salad, right? We got radicchio, arugula, escarole, scarola, right? You want to put some romaine in there, go for it. Nice filler, just the way it is. So now, what am I putting in? I'm putting some tomatoes from the garden. I got some great olives here, okay? Two types of olives. Got the Niçoise, green, right? Then we're going to, now, you can put cucumbers, peppers, red onions, whatever you prefer. This is all about you. This is a nice Giambotta. There's everything thrown together inside here. Okay? Mix this guy up. Okay? Now, put our dressing. Simple so far, right? Not difficult to do at all. Mix this guy around. Very simple salad. Put artichokes if you want, beans if you like. Okay, so it's just really anything. The principle about this one I'm willing to tell you is knowing your vinegar, okay? Knowing your spices. If you're going to use dry herbs, let them reconstitute a little bit, right? That's important. Know all that stuff. Have a nice variety, some great vegetables, a little saltiness from the olives, the nice acid from the tomatoes. Got some nice greens in here. It's a nice flavor going on it. Now, I tell you, we got a nice Sicilian blend of dry herbs that I'm working on. And of course, you got to have a little bit of Ricotta Salad on top, okay, to kind of pull it all together. So a nice Giambotta salad is everything thrown together. I don't have an awful lot in here, but you get the idea. The more you have, the better it is. Now, a little variety to have in here. Some nuts, pinoli nuts, some sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds. If you can't have nuts, you want those seeds. That gives you a nice crunch. You could put some croutons on it. It's a very simple, nice, light Giambotta salad. Perfect. Enjoy. So now it's time for dessert. The favorite part of everyone's meal, right? We got something really simple today. We're going to use some mascarpone cheese. We're not making tiramisu, and everyone thinks of it right away. But you can use mascarpone cheese as a really nice flavor on something. We got some beautiful peaches. They're coming out beautiful right now. They're nice and sweet. okay? We got some local honey, and we'll talk about that in a second, why that's so important. And we're going to put a little bit of biscottis on it. So if you got biscottis that have chocolate or plain, either or, doesn't matter. Never met a biscotti I didn't like, so it doesn't matter if it's chocolate or not. A little lemon zest here, pinch of salt, and a splash of water, and we're good to go. We can make a beautiful little dessert. Very simple. All right, so let's get started. Let's talk about the peaches really quickly. You can use nectarines if you like. You can even do plums. But remember one thing, I mentioned it earlier, know your ingredients. On the peaches and a lot of nectarines as well, they're a little firmer. Plums are a little softer. But you want your you want your peaches to be a little firm so they cook up a little bit better. So all I simply did is just cut them, right? Took them off off the pit here. Just kind of squeezed it off and cut them like this. A little bit on the firm side. And the reason why I want them firm is because they're going to cook up a little bit. All right, so we get a pan nice and hot. We're going to add these peaches to here. Hear that sound? That's important. I always cook with sound, so I can hear it sizzling, okay? So it's sizzling right over here. And now we're going to put we're going to put a pinch of salt. Salt in the dessert? Yes. Salt pulls out the moisture. It's going to help pull the moisture out, and it's going to help caramelize it and make a natural sauce. And that little saltiness pulls out the other flavors. Kind of homogenize all the flavor. All right, so we got a local raw honey, and this is important that I want you to know about. When you work with a raw honey, a local honey, it's actually better for you, right? It has the pollen from the area that the local bees make, and it's better for your allergies and your body all around. And raw, it's not processed in any way, okay? It's going to soften up the peaches just a little bit. Notice I'm just keep going around with it. I don't need a lot of time on this one, okay? I'm going to put a splash of water in a minute or so then the water will help make a sauce. Okay? So we got the honey here. Want this to get a little bit caramelized. Coat it all around. So you see that brown that's coming on right there? That's important. That's the flavor we want. We want that little caramelization. Okay? And then we're going to stop it in a second with a little splash of water. And that's going to help kind of make a sauce as well. Now we're going to use the honey in another location too. We're going to use it inside the mascarpone. You can use sugar, you can use agave if you want. But the honey's just a better flavor. It has a better nutrients for your body as opposed to sugar. Agave works the same way. All right, it's getting a little brown right there. That's a little splash of water, about a tablespoon or so. It's steaming up a little bit. Okay, and that's it. Done. We don't have to do too much. So we'll take this guy and we'll put him right in here. And you got a nice little bit of honey. Now, you want to get a little fancy. Put a little bit of lavender. Beautiful. You want to put a pinch of cinnamon. Knock yourself out. This is all good stuff to add to it. I want to taste that. Yummy. So we got the rest of these peaches here I'm not going to use right now. Put them off to the side. I'll eat this later. Got a nice honey. So we're going to add a little. So earlier I was using lemon, right? I used the juice. I zested it. So I got my little lemon zest here. If they're big, just kind of chop them up. We don't want the acid in here. Is it going to hurt it? No, but we don't want necessarily have that acid flavor inside here. You can use orange zest if you like, if you have them around. Now we're going to put our honey in here, and we're going to sweeten our cheese. Okay, so you got the lemon zest, and you have the honey and the mascarpone cheese. What's mascarpone cheese? Basically, it's an Italian cream cheese, right? Mix this guy up. We got a little bit of herb from before, from the zest that we used. Get that out of the way. Yummy. So I want to taste it, make sure it tastes good. So when you whip it up a little bit, okay, it's going to be easier to work with, incorporate, scoop out. Okay. Okay, so next, we're going to take these little pinch of salt, as I told you about. We're going to take these biscottis, And this is going to give you a nice crunch. You can omit the biscottis. You don't need them if you don't want them, if you don't have them or you don't want them. You want to use a sponge cake. Again, it's your recipe. Whatever you want to do it the way you want to do it. Okay? So we'll put a little bit on the bottom. We'll put a couple of these. Now, if you do it warm like I have here, it will warm up the cheese, right? And you got this nice sauce in here, right? Look at that. The juice right in here. Starting to bleed out, right? Now, we'll put the mascarpone on top with the honey in it. How much honey? As much as you want. You want it really sweet, you want it less sweet. It's okay to do it any way you like. So we got this little parfait. It's just so simple, and it doesn't really take a lot of effort at all, right? We'll put some more of these nice, beautiful peaches on top. We'll put the biscotti on top. I like the little chocolate in it because I like chocolate on everything, so it doesn't hurt. Okay, we got this nice little juice right here. You want to float a little bit of alcohol on top. Knock yourself out. Have fun with it. Okay, put a little more than you should. That's okay too. All right, you got this beautiful little nice crunch. So you got a creaminess. You got a nice sweetness from the peaches, and then you have nice crunchiness from the biscotti. Okay, very simple. There you go. Honey mascarpone peaches with a little biscotti crust on top. And now we're at the end of it, and I wanted to tell you it's really been my pleasure to show you the Italian pasta night with gnocchis, making my wife happy. This is exactly what she wanted to see. A couple of things I want to finish up on. We talked about the Giambotta salad here. I got some fresh corn, perfect for this nice sweetness, right? Goes great, raw corn even, right? We put that on top, nice and vibrant. We have a beautiful Giambotta salad with just a little simple red wine vinaigrette. Then we have a potato seared gnocchis with caramelized fennel. And then we have over here a ricotta whole wheat gnocchi with a little bit of a Filetto Pomodoro sauce. And finally, we finished off with a little bit of a mascarpone cream with biscotti and honey peaches. So I hope you really enjoyed this today, and I hope that you're really going to have a great time making these simple dishes. Take it with your fun, with your family, have fun with it, and really a great summertime type stuff that you have here. So please let me know how you're doing. Once again, my pleasure, and talk to you real soon.